Hey guys, welcome to Art Club. Excited to have you here. So today is day one of a 2-day project. So what I'm calling this one is a paper party box, and you can see a picture of what this will look like, or an idea of what it will look like. If we look down at our slides, right there in the corner. So whoever signed you up for Art Club has access to those slides if you want to take a closer look and make it a little bit bigger. But today is going to be day one, and we need to basically construct the box itself. Tomorrow is when we put the party in it. So today is going to be a lot of like following the directions and making sure that we're taking it kind of step by step. So it is a little bit more tedious today, but tomorrow is going to be where all the fun and creativity comes into play. So by the end of club today, we want to have something that looks sort of like this, only yours is going to be glued together. Obviously, for me to take this apart, I couldn't have it glued together quite yet. But it's going to be a gridded box, and tomorrow's when we're going to add all the fun flourishes on the inside to make it a party. So let's take this apart, deconstruct it, and figure out how we're going to do this bit by bit. So here we go. I'm going to take this, move it over here. So step one is going to be to make a square base. All right. So in order to do that, what I did was I chose a piece of paper. So let me swap it out for a new one here. I chose a piece of paper like this. And as you can probably tell, I took that piece of paper and I folded it so that this edge matched with that edge. So when I fold it like that, fold it on over, this is a half a square. So I drew a line here, and that way when I cut off this extra bit right here, you can see that I'm going to be left with a perfect square. I'll kind of put my other base on top of it just so you can see that. So that's what we do here. We just fold this corner up until this side matches, draw a line, and then just cut off that extra bit. And we can save that extra bit for tomorrow, but we want that square for today. All right? So that's step one to make the base. That one's not too challenging. Next, we're going to need a second piece of paper, and the next piece of paper that we are grabbing is what we are going to turn into our grid for our party box. Okay? So whichever color you would like this to be, go ahead and grab that piece of paper next. And so the steps we're going to take with that piece of paper, get that out of the way. So here is my next piece of paper. All right. Step number one is I'm going to fold this piece of paper in half, hamburger style. So kind of like how you would fold it to make a book or a birthday card or anything like that. So go ahead and fold it in half, hamburger style. So once again, just took that and folded it in half. Okay? You can see that we're going to fold it in half again, but technically this time, even though we're folding it in the same direction, it would be considered hot dog style because now we're folding it the skinny way, right? So make sure to press it down really well, get some nice sharp fold lines in there, but this is what we want to have. So it's going to be divided into 4 segments like that. All right. The next step, we are going to get out just our regular old scissors, and we are going to, there those are, we're going to cut each of these fold lines here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut like this for each of those so that I have 4 separate lengths of paper, and they should all be the same width. And down like that. All right, one more cut to go, and then I'll have all 4 of my pieces of paper. All right, the next step, we are going to fold all 4 of these pieces of paper in half, hot dog style. Okay, so I've got the 4 looking like that. Oh, there we go. Looked like that one was still together, didn't it? All right, so I've got all 4 of them folded in, cut like that. And now I'm going to fold them each hot dog style try to make it as even as you can. I know sometimes it can be a little tricky and tedious, but we're folding them all just like this, okay? To save time on the video, I'm gonna just do this to this one. Actually, I'll do it to two because I'll need to show you two ways to do a later step. So there we go. So you would do that to all 4 of them. And then the next step, so obviously right now, if I were to glue this down to my base, it's not gonna really have any spot to stick, is it? So we need to make some edges for the glue to be able to go onto so that it can stick. So this is probably the most tedious step right here. I'm going to take and fold over just a little strip on both sides, that like a little lip that will stick out. So just kind of taking and making a lip like that and then folding it out. Whoops. And sometimes it goes a little crazy. Don't worry if it's not exactly perfect. Once again, this is going to be for the grid of our party box. So there's one side. And there's going to be lots of cool flourishes that we're going to add tomorrow. So even if it's not exactly perfect, you're really not going to see it by the time everything's done. So this step probably takes the longest and is the most tedious, but basically what we're looking for is something that looks like this. So this is going to be the top of our grid, and then this is where we're going to glue it onto the base. Okay, so we want to do that to all 4 of them. So I'm going to do that to this one next. Once again, this does take a little bit of time, but that's okay. If you need to pause the video at any point before moving on, you can totally do that. Notice too, like my paper ripped a little bit, but that's okay. We're not going to see that by the time it's done. That is not going to matter whatsoever. All right, so I've got that. So the next step, once we've got that going on, we want to make sure, so we should have all 4 of them looking like this. We need 2 of them to have slits in the top, and 2 of them are going to have slits in the bottom. So I'm going to grab my original grid just so you guys can see this a little bit better, what I'm talking about before you make your cuts. So here is my grid with all 4 of them, and I'm going to take this apart to show you what I mean. So there's my 2 and my 2. So here's the 2 of them, right? What I did was I kind of stacked them together, and I made a cut about a third of the way in, so you can see it's divided into 3s. 1, 2, 3. So about a third of the way down, I made a cut through both of them, like that, to make that cut. Okay, and notice I didn't go quite, I went over half, but not all the way down, because I don't want to cut my paper in half, right? I just want to have a spot for the grid to come together. And then I did the same thing over here. So I cut again about a third of the way in, cut like that, and now I've got a spot for the grids to connect. So I did it on the top half of these, but let's check out the other ones, because on the other ones we actually need to do, even though they're both going to be at the third waypoint, these we're going to need to cut at the bottom, right? Because they are going to get put together so that the top, the ones that are cut at top, match up with the ones that are cut at the bottom, and they'll kind of fit together like that. All right, so once again, same thing for this. I would stack them together so that they're even, and then about a third of the way down, I'm going to make that cut, and then about a third of the way again, make that cut. Once we've got all those cuts made, you should then be able to kind of finagle those together and grid them together. It's sort of like a puzzle almost. It can be a little finicky. But now I've got my grid. Okay, sometimes you gotta kind of wiggle them around a little bit. And if yours isn't exactly a perfect grid, it's really, once again, it's not really that big of a deal. So if you've got like one box area that's bigger or smaller than the other, doesn't really matter. It's all gonna look cool tomorrow anyway, so don't get too worried about that. All right, so once I've got this done, I'm going to put all that glue down on the bottom of this. So we would glue it onto our base, and we are almost done. One little step left, and then we are done. So right now we've got a cool grid, but we don't have our edges of the box, so we're gonna need to do that next. So all I did was I took my paper, and it can be the same color or a different color for the edges, it doesn't matter. You could have a different color on each edge, totally up to you. But I just took and I cut my paper so that it's about the same. If it's a little bit bigger or smaller, that's okay too, but about the same. And then I would just put glue here, so probably here and here, right, where that's gonna line up, and glue that on. We might need to hold that in place for a little bit, and I'm going to do that all the way around to make the edges. If you want to add some extra pieces like of tape on the inner corners and around the bottom edges, you can add some tape to it too, just to give it a little bit more strength. But that is how we're going to, after we have all 4 pieces on there, that's how we're going to make our party box, our grid, so that it's ready to go for all the fun flourishes to be added tomorrow. All right, it's a tedious day, I get it. There's lots of directions. I promise tomorrow's gonna be full of so much fun. It'll make up for all the step-by-steps today. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.